everybody and welcome to this video. Today's video is all about the personal statement. In this video I'd like to offer some personal tips on how to write an excellent personal statement. My name is Jasmine for those of you who don't know me, which is probably everybody, and nobody knows me. With my personal statement I applied to 5 universities in the UK, the University of Cambridge, LSE, UCL, King's College London, and the University of Edinburgh. My courses were all different, but they were all centered around economics and development, except for my course in UCL, which was an arts and sciences course. So it was a take on the liberal arts system that the US has. A bit of basic information about the personal statement. It is 4,000 characters long, which is approximately 47 lines, I believe, and for most universities, this is the only piece of writing that you'll be able to give them, and the only piece of you to base their decision. Tip number 1 with a personal statement is to open with a BAM. I think a great way to start your personal statement is through a question that you've had before, through an experience, or through a thought. As soon as your admissions officer reads your personal statement, you want to catch on to them immediately. So you really want to open with something personal to you and something intriguing. I started with a question in my personal statement, so a question that arose when I was in Antiquera in the Philippines after Typhoon Haiyan, and I was offering aid to over 100 families, and I was questioning the sustainability of what we were doing. I started with this question. To overcome reliance, how can the people in this community develop a way to support themselves in a sustainable manner? I had it in speech marks and I carried on from there. Yes, I read my personal statement so many times that I remember my opening line. My second tip is to be quite focused on your course whilst writing your personal statement. You want to talk about why you are a great student for that course and not really why you're a great student in general. The universities will expect that you are a great student already, but through these 4,000 characters you really want to show exactly what makes you passionate about that course without even using the word passion. Remember that in the UK you are applying to a specific course, unlike in the US, and there are thousands of other students who are applying for the exact same course as you are. And this should not scare you from applying at all, but it should highlight that you want to make yourself stand out from the rest through showing love for your course. Tip number 3 will develop on, how do you actually show interest in your course? I think one of the greatest ways to demonstrate interest is to actually show that you've taken initiative beyond your high school. This can be through the books that you have read, through the activities that you do, through other experiences that may be volunteer work, and it can even be a personal anecdote. In my personal statement I touched on my mother's background, as she did live in poverty, and I explored the ways in which it has changed me as a person and how it's affected my visions and my ambitions. I also wrote about a book that I had read called What Money Can't Buy, The Moral Limits of the Market by Michael J. Sandel. And it is a philosophical approach to economics, and it just comes to show that there's so much more to economics than what I've read in my school textbook. I think it's so great if you can approach your subject area through a different lens. So philosophy into economics, or philosophy into medicine, or something like that. It shows that you're well-rounded and you're willing to view your subject not through one lens but through multiple lenses. I even wrote about positions that I held in school that helped me develop certain characteristics to flourish even more in my fields, which included some leadership positions and sports positions. Highlighting positions that you've held that connect to the characteristics that you should have in your course is a fantastic approach. So these are generally, I think, the ways that you can show love for your course, through positions, books that you've read or content that you've read outside of your school, personal anecdotes, personal experiences, and yeah, I think that covers it. Tip number 4 is that if you do write about a personal experience, then ensure that you are going to write about what you learned from that experience and what you still have to learn and have to explore. You do want to go into university asking even more questions and seeking more answers. So if you can extract questions that you want to explore through your experiences, then it will show initiative on your behalf. Tip number 5 is not to talk too much about your personal achievements. I think on the whole the UK application tends to be a lot more academic focused rather than extracurricular focused. The universities that you intend to apply to already know your grades. They know your GCSEs and your IB or A-levels or whatever you've done. You don't have much space in your personal statement. Remember, you only have 47 lines, so you don't want to expand too much about your personal achievements, but rather use that space to focus on why you love that subject area. In fact, what you can do is you can pick some positions and achievements that you have and kind of incorporate them, slip them into sentences where you're demonstrating your enjoyment and your interest in that particular discipline. So I'm just going to read off my screen, but one of the sentences that I used was translating words into actions as the environmental prefect. I promote sustainable practices within my school, such as the greater use of biodegradable materials, and educate fellow students on how some of our current practices threaten the environment, thereby nurturing awareness. So through that sentence, not only did I mention that I was the environmental prefect, but I also mentioned that I partake in a lot of sustainable efforts and thereby showing my interest for the environment, which belongs in the realm of development. Tip number 6 is not to waste words. You have 4,000 characters and it seems so little when you actually start writing it. So keep it succinct and genuine. Remember to be honest in everything that you write. You don't want to get admitted with false information in there. Keeping it succinct in itself is sophisticated. Do slip in a few academic words here and there. Don't overly decorate it. Tip number 7 is to trust yourself whilst you're writing this personal statement. I know you're probably nervous and doubting yourself throughout this application process. Everyone is going to be going through the exact same thing, I promise you that. This is a very important piece of writing, no doubt, but at the same time you have to ensure that you're trusting yourself, you're having some confidence. Do the best that you can, and I mean that's all you can do. Tip number 8 is to ask for advice from other people regarding your personal statement. Don't be shy to ask other people. Most of the time they'll be more than happy to be reading your personal statement. And I think it's great if you send it to people who were accepted into the universities that you want to attend. Sometimes other people's advice will inspire you, even if you think like it won't. Give it to someone who's had the experience of writing a personal statement or someone who hasn't had experience at all, because sometimes they may give even more genuine answers. Tip number 9 kind of contradicts tip number 8, but ensure that if you're receiving advice from someone that you don't feel is right, then you don't have to take it aboard. Do ask for advice, but if it just doesn't feel right to you, you're not obliged to use it. And this goes for people who even got into the university that you want to go to. This is your personal statement at the end of the day, and you should have the last say. Tip number 10 is extremely important, and it is to kind of start your personal statement a little earlier and then come back to it periodically. When I wrote mine, I was reading mine every hour of every day, and I was looking at it so often that I actually got pretty tired of it. I was approaching it with the same mindset every single time, to the point at which I was making very few changes. However, once I finally took aboard my father's advice, I gave myself a week in between my personal statement reviews. And I noticed that when I came back to it with fresh eyes and a fresh mind, I could make so many good and better changes. I switched things around, I tried new things, I added new paragraphs that I never thought I would add, and it started to work, and I felt a lot happier. So don't be so clingy with your personal statement. I know it's so hard to set it aside and not look at it and not touch it because it's so important, but it does more good than harm. Okay, this tip is pretty common sense, but it is to make several drafts of the personal statement, but more importantly to save your drafts as you go along. I recommend that you write it on a Word document that you can save, not really on Google Docs. I made 7 drafts and I kept every single one of them because sometimes the changes that I made weren't as good as I thought they would be, and I would return back to my previous draft. And it's also a nice way to compare and track the developments that you make. A little thing that I want to mention before I end this video is that when you insert your personal statement into UCAS, you have to insert it in a little box and ensure that you're kind of merging everything together. Try not to leave a space between your paragraphs because that will count as one of your 47 lines. Alright, thank you so much for watching. I hope you got something out of this video. I'm having a lot of free time right now and I'm having a lot of fun making videos to help you guys out. Thank you again for watching this and bye!